Our story starts in a modern city on a very sunny day, showing a large office building. Inside the office we see our protagonist, Song Jin-Seong, working as he wonders about a strange event from the day before. Focused on his keyboard, he tries to remember what exactly happened last night. Then, he recalls how a blue screen suddenly appeared in his room and startled him quite a bit. Surprised by the floating shop window, he wonders if he's just seeing things. Taking a closer look, he tries to buy a canned tuna but can't because he doesn't have any coins. Soon after, he finds a hammer for smashing zombie skulls costing 5 coins. This image gives him a vision of several zombies coming toward him, which makes him very worried. Back at the office, he ignores these thoughts, thinking his mind is just tired from exhaustion. Unexpectedly, his furious manager appears. Walking toward him and shouting his name, the boss approaches him and asks if he's daydreaming again. Slamming his hand on the desk, he tells the young man to focus and asks if he took care of last week's work. Jin-Seong knows the problem was with the other company, which didn't prepare the documents correctly. On top of that, he thinks his boss is incompetent and is now putting on a show for everyone to see. Annoyed by the lack of response, the manager glares at him with an angry expression. Then he yells and asks if the employee is going to keep responding to him like that. Suddenly, a female voice calls for the manager, making him change his expression instantly. A beautiful coworker offers him a drink and tells him to cheer up. Instantly, the man's angry face turns into a goofy smile upon seeing the woman. Grabbing her hand, he invites her to dinner after work, completely forgetting about the argument. The manager keeps hitting on the woman, saying it would be a waste for her to go home looking so pretty. With an awkward smile, she declines the invitation, saying she already has other plans for today. The man accepts and says they can have a drink another time, while the woman politely agrees. As soon as the boss walks away, the woman sighs in relief, glad to be out of the awkward situation. Seeing this, Jin-Seong thanks her for her help, and she turns to him with a slight smile. Looking at the sky, he can only think about how much he'd like to go home right now. Outside, he gets angry at his boss, thinking that if it weren't for his colleague, he'd still be in there. Smoking on the rooftop, he laments not being able to leave the company, as finding a new job would be difficult. Thinking about the help he received, he decides he'll buy the woman a coffee later. Just then, Seon-ah herself appears on the rooftop and finds him there alone. Surprised, he asks what brings her up there since she doesn't even smoke. The woman explains that she came up to escape the annoying manager for a bit. She says a client disappeared and now the boss is taking it out on everyone and still asking her out. Suddenly, she feels a chill and comments that the day is a bit cold, leaving the guy confused. The woman insists it's not normal and shows her goosebumps even though she's wearing long sleeves. He laughs and says she must be sensitive to the cold, but she pulls out her phone to prove her point. Then, she shows him a social media post showing snow in Africa. Jin-Seong is shocked by the news and wonders if it's even real. She agrees it's strange, and at that moment, both of their phones start vibrating with an alert. It was a cold wave. Warning in the middle of summer, and right after, another emergency notification arrives. They read the alert, which warns of a sudden cold wave and a sharp drop in temperature. They both think it must be a mistake, as a cold wave warning in June makes no sense at all. Suddenly, a small snowflake gently falls onto Jin-Seong's outstretched hand. His colleague complains about the cold while he stares at the snow in his hand. Completely shocked, they both look up at the sky and are surprised to realize it's actually snowing in the middle of summer. By nightfall, the once sunny city is now completely covered in snow. Back in the office, the guy drinks something warm and thinks the world has finally gone crazy. Feeling it getting even colder, he decides to pack his things and head home right away. When he gets to the elevator, he sees the panel shows the 6th floor, so he calls it to go down. However, the elevator doesn't move, and he presses the button again, wondering if it's broken. Suddenly, a blast of icy wind hits him, making him hug himself and complain about the cold. With the status window in his head, he decides to take the stairs to leave quickly. As he goes down the steps, he keeps grumbling about the cold and the crazy weather. Nearing his floor, he hears the sound of the elevator doors closing behind him. Turning around, he sees the doors are open and wonders if the elevator wasn't broken after all. The doors keep opening and closing on their own, and he finds the silence of the place strange. Suddenly, all the lights go out, and the hallway is plunged into darkness, making him very nervous. Finding the situation dangerous, he decides to forget his things and just get out of there as fast as possible. Soon after, he hears a weird sound of scraping metal coming from inside the office. It gives him the chills, and he decides he needs to grab his things and run out of that place. He carefully enters the dark office to get his belongings and leave quickly. The guy finds the silence odd, and remembers there were more people there before he went to the rooftop. Arriving at his desk, he finds it all messy and wonders what happened. He notices the place looks like it was abandoned in a hurry and calls out for someone. That strange sound from before and the mess give him a very bad feeling. Determined to leave as quickly as possible, he grabs his backpack to finally go home. At that moment, a scary shadow of a person appears on the wall behind him. Startled by the sudden presence, he quickly turns around to see who is there. Looking toward the meeting room, he feels that there's something inside. Walking toward it, he steps on something on the floor and realizes it's a dirty ID badge. He takes a step back and looks at the identification card on the floor with curiosity. As he picks up the badge, he sees it's covered in a red liquid and belongs to a colleague. Frightened by what he found, he falls backward and wonders what happened there. Desperate, he starts crawling away from the meeting room in great fear. His eyes widen in terror as he stares intently at the room's door. Very cautiously, he peeks through the blinds to try and see what's happening in there. Inside the dark room, he can only see a pair of glowing red eyes shining brightly. The creature inside is crouched on the floor and seems to be feeding on something. Completely terrified by the scene, he can't believe what he's seeing. The creature lifts its head, revealing a mouthful of red liquid and sharp teeth. The guy is shocked to see that the creature is one of his transformed co-workers. Realizing their eyes have met, he panics and starts running away. The monster leaps over the desks and pursues him, violently knocking Jin-Seong to the floor. Fallen and scared, he can't believe he's face to face with a real zombie. The creature lunges at him, but the young man manages to dodge the attack by a hair's breadth. Terrified by the situation, he wonders what kind of scary creature this is. Looking for a way out, he glances around and quickly grabs a chair to defend himself. With all his strength, he lifts the chair high and prepares to attack the monster. In an act of desperation, he hits the zombie's head with the chair in a powerful blow. The impact sends the creature flying, and the guy takes this chance to run away. Running for his life, he feels adrenaline and fear take over his body. To his despair, the monster gets up quickly and starts chasing him again, even faster. Seeing a nearby door, he runs to it and slams it shut to protect himself from the creature. The zombie starts pounding on the door violently, trying to break it down to get him. Using his full weight, Jin-Seong struggles to keep the door closed. Hearing the frightening sounds from the other side, he's completely frozen with fear. Suddenly, the noise stops, and he sees the zombie slowly walking away down the dark hallway. With trembling hands, he continues to hold the door, still in disbelief about what just happened. Relieved, he slides down the wall and sits on the floor, trying to catch his breath. Still in shock, he stammers to himself that it was definitely a zombie. His phone vibrates, showing an emergency alert about a virus spreading through the city. Confused by the news about rabies, he runs a hand through his hair and complains about the whole situation. He remembers the creature he saw and is sure that it was a zombie, not rabies. Sitting on the floor, he picks up his phone to search for news and understand what's happening. Browsing a forum, he sees several reports of people being attacked and the world ending. Realizing the chaos, he wonders if this is related to yesterday's status window. The guy searches for information about the window but finds no results and dismisses the idea. Suddenly, his phone screen starts to glitch, and the image becomes completely distorted. He looks at the device, not understanding what's happening to his phone screen. Soon after, a message appears on the screen informing him that the connection has been lost. Desperate with the lack of communication, he wonders what he should do now. Putting his hands on his face, he realizes he's in a very difficult situation. Shivering from the cold, he feels his teeth chattering and complains about the low temperature of the place. Huddled on the stairs, he fears he'll freeze before the zombies even get him. Standing up, the young man decides he needs to hold on until a rescue team shows up. Checking his phone, he notices the battery is at 83% and should last for 2 days. With a determined look, he looks up and prepares to explore the building. Using his phone's flashlight to light the way, he starts climbing the stairs. Reaching the 7th floor, he sees that it houses the building's construction team. He enters the empty floor, hoping to find clothes or food to survive. He starts searching through the drawers, hoping to find something useful for his situation. In one of the drawers, he finds a clean, neatly folded dress shirt that he can wear. After changing his clothes, he feels much better and warmer to continue exploring. Now, his focus is on finding food, so he continues to search the floor's cabinets. With a smile on his face, he celebrates finding a backpack full of supplies. Inside the backpack, he finds food, water, and even a blanket to keep warm. He thanks the bag's unknown owner and puts it on his shoulders, ready for whatever comes next. With his supplies secured, he now needs to find a weapon to defend himself. Approaching a door, he is surprised to find a set of golf clubs. With an ironic smile, he realizes his boss's golf clubs might come in handy. He hangs his bag and the clubs on the staircase and prepares to wait out the night. Wrapped in the blanket, he wonders if the food will last for 3 days and if rescue will arrive. Looking out the window, he sees the snow falling outside and worries about his situation. The streets are in chaos with cars exploding and hordes of zombies everywhere. The blizzard is so strong that he knows it will be difficult for a rescue helicopter to arrive. Worried, he sits on the floor and wonders what he'll do if rescue takes a week. The cold gets worse and worse, and he huddles in the blanket, trying to stay warm. Suddenly, the status window he had seen before reappears in front of him. He remembers that the shop had winter clothes and thinks they would be very useful now. Looking at the items in the shop, he wonders how on earth he can get coins. Focused on the blue screen, he tries to figure out a way to get coins to buy the items. With no clues, he lowers his head and tries to think of a solution to this problem. As the snow falls outside, he huddles in his blanket, feeling the cold increase more and more. Suddenly, he hears approaching footsteps and quickly gets up to investigate the source. The sound seems to be coming from the emergency exit door, so he prepares for a possible attack. The noise gradually gets louder, and he realizes something has tried to open the door. With his heart racing, the guy prepares for the worst and grips his golf club tightly. He throws off the blanket and positions himself to attack, thinking it's another monster. The doorknob starts to turn slowly, indicating the door is about to open at any moment. Holding the club with both hands, he raises it above his head, ready to strike. As soon as the door opens, the young man doesn't hesitate and launches an attack with all his strength. At the last second, a person runs in and narrowly dodges the blow. With no time to think, he prepares to attack again, golf club in hand. The man shields himself with his arms and desperately yells for him to stop the attack. Surprised, he recognizes the person as a coworker and slowly lowers his weapon. He remembers this was the annoying guy from the sales team and feels very disappointed. The man explains that he was in the break room when he heard knocking on the door from outside. He brags about being smart and locking the door from the inside to protect himself. Jin-Seong says he just opened the door and ran, making his colleague think it was easy. Not caring about the story, the man gets his attention and points to his own hand. The man then asks if he has any food because he's very hungry, and the guy is surprised. Jin-Seong denies having any food, thinking he can't share his emergency supplies. He decides to offer only water, and the person thanks him while watching him strangely. Suddenly, the colleague grabs Jin-Seong's wrist and holds the bottle very tightly. With a desperate look, he asks if the young man is sure there's nothing else to eat. Seeing that strange reaction, the guy realizes something is very wrong with his companion. As he fills the bottle, he thinks about how unsettling the man's behavior. He notices the man is sweating a lot despite the intense cold in the place. Out of nowhere, the man transforms into a monster and lunges to attack Jin-Seong by surprise. The creature grabs him and throws him violently to the ground, putting the guy in a dangerous situation. In a swift move, he manages to hit the zombie's face with the metal bottle he was holding. Seizing the opportunity, he grabs a golf club and prepares to finish the creature off for good. With all his strength, the young man lands a powerful blow on the monster's head, which falls to the ground. Even on the ground and injured, the zombie continues to groan and writhe in a frightening way. Seeing that the creature is still moving, he holds the club firmly for another decisive strike. Determined to survive, Jin-Seong strikes the monster several times without any mercy. The attack is brutal, and he keeps striking until he's sure the threat has been completely neutralized. He doesn't stop attacking the zombie on the floor, making sure it won't get up again. After the final blow, the guy finally stops and observes the result of his terrible actions. Completely exhausted and shocked, he tries to catch his breath after the intense fight. The status window appears in front of him, showing that he earned 1 coin from the fight. Noticing the connection, he opens the shop and sees that he now has 1 coin in his inventory. Looking at the items, he finally understands that he needs to eliminate zombies to earn coins. Annoyed, he realizes he risked his life for just 1 measly coin and becomes frustrated. With a serious look, he analyzes the zombie's body on the floor to understand what happened. Approaching carefully, he investigates the body to see if he can find any clues. He then notices a bite mark on the man's arm and understands how he got infected. Kneeling on the floor, he sighs with relief and mourns the loss of his former colleague. He goes back to the office and sits down to rest and process everything that has happened. He smokes a cigarette and thinks that he can't trust anyone anymore in this situation. The guy finds a pack of cigarettes and puts it in his bag for later. Suddenly, he hears screams from outside and gets up to see what's happening. Looking out the window, he observes the horror scene unfolding on the city streets. A survivor bravely fights with a bat against a horde of hungry zombies. Unfortunately, he gets surrounded by the monsters and is quickly overpowered by their large numbers. In no time, the man is completely overwhelmed by the zombies with no chance of escape. The creature that got him turns around, revealing its now disfigured and terrifying face. Frightened by the scene, the guy steps away from the window and goes back inside the office. He sits in a chair and laments the terrible situation he's in. Now, looking at the snow falling outside, he prepares for another long night of survival. Lying on a table, the protagonist tries to get some rest in the dark, cold office. By the third day, his phone battery is at only 3%, and he's worried. With few snacks left, he has spent his time saving energy and looking out the window. During this time, he saw several people trying to escape, but they all ended up turning into zombies. Despite everything, he concludes that he needs to make a move and starts packing his gear to leave. Staying put will only bring him closer to the end, so he needs to find other survivors. With his backpack and weapons, he sets out, determined to find someone to team up with and get out of there. His first goal is the 6th floor to check if the entrance is really blocked as they said. Walking down the hall, he suddenly notices something unexpected and stops in surprise. With a glimmer in his eyes, he sees a light and is filled with hope as he realizes what it means. Excited by the discovery, he starts running through the office toward the light he saw in the distance. Reaching the window, he looks outside, but his joyful expression soon vanishes from his face. The landscape outside remains the same, with all the city buildings covered in a lot of snow. His eyes reflect the desolate city as he thinks about what to do next to live. He's disappointed to see it still dark outside, and his hopes diminish a little. However, the lights came on, so he concludes that someone must have turned on the emergency generator. This confirms his suspicions, and now he's sure there's another survivor in the building. Knowing the lights could go out at any moment, he needs to act very quickly. He needs to find the other survivor before the power runs out and everything goes dark again. The guy figures the person is on the 1st floor and starts heading down the stairs carefully. To avoid making noise, he takes off his shoes and carefully ties them around his neck. He descends the stairs silently, thinking this is better than attracting hungry zombies. Arriving on the 6th floor, he approaches the door to check the situation. On the other side, very cautiously, he peeks through the crack in the door to take a quick look down the hallway. He sees the entrance is blocked by heavy equipment, exactly as he had imagined. Excited by this discovery, he believes there might be more survivors than he thought. The emergency exit sign shows the way to the 2nd and 1st floors of the building. He approaches the lobby door and imagines there must be a lot of zombies nearby. Taking a deep breath, he slowly turns the doorknob and prepares for what he'll find. Peeking through the gap in the door, he hopes not to find any creatures on the other side. Unfortunately for him, the lobby is completely infested with zombies, and the situation is very dangerous. The creatures are everywhere, and he realizes that getting out of the building will be an impossible task. Surprised by the number, he sees an entire horde of zombies wandering around the 1st floor. Relieved, he closes the door and realizes the zombies from outside haven't managed to get in yet. He hears the creatures banging on the glass door and fears it could break at any moment. With no time to waste, he runs down the hall to find the other survivor as fast as he can. Reaching the management office, he finds the door open and enters cautiously. Inside, he finds a frozen man and recognizes him as the building's security guard. The guy remembers how the guard would take off his clothes due to severe hypothermia. With respect, he closes the deceased's eyes and says goodbye to the man he saw every morning. With his golf club in hand, he bids farewell to the security guard and wishes him to rest in peace. With no time to lose, he returns to the hallway and continues his search for the other survivor. The only place left is the security room, so he's sure someone is in there. He approaches the door and imagines there might be traps to protect against intruders. With a determined look, he realizes he needs to show that he's not a zombie or a threat. Outside, a zombie convulses bizarrely while making scary sounds in the hallway. Another monster approaches and starts screaming loudly, attracting the attention of other creatures. Knowing they have good hearing, he knocks on the door to get the attention of whoever is inside. With his breath held, he prepares to open the door very carefully and attentively. As the door creaks open, he's surprised by a quick and unexpected attack from inside the room. An improvised spear comes toward him, but he manages to block the blow with his golf club. Surprised by the attack, he recognizes the sound of the spear and understands what's happening. The other survivor also seems shocked to see that he attacked a human and not a monster. In the distance, a zombie hears the noise of the fight and starts moving toward the security room. The man backs away from the door and prepares to attack again if he needs to defend himself. In a swift move, Jin-Seong manages to disarm the guy and pin him to the floor. He disarms the guy and throws him down to show he's not a threat. Taking advantage of the distraction, Jin-Seong manages to push the other guy into the room and closes the door. He quickly locks the door to ensure the zombies can't get inside. Now safe, the two survivors face each other, ready to find out who the other is. The man asks if he's human, and Jin-Seong confirms it, as they both eye each other suspiciously. Jin-Seong explains he came because of the generator, and the other immediately understands the situation. To identify himself, he shows his ID badge and introduces himself as the assistant manager of the sales team. The man introduces himself too, but Jin-Seong worries about the possibility of him being infected. He analyzes the guy and notices he isn't sweating and seems to feel the cold just like him. The two continue to stare at each other, and Jin-Seong tries to think of a plan for the situation. The other man notices the backpack on the young man's back and stares at him with a curious and attentive gaze. With the improvised weapon in hand, he remains on the defensive, ready for any move. Jin-Seong notices the other isn't hungry and concludes that he is not infected. He tries to get closer, but the man backs away, making him even more suspicious. With his actions, Jin-Seong realizes he's made the man tense and now needs to find a way to break the ice. With an idea in mind, he drops his golf club and takes the pack of cigarettes from his bag. The other man watches his movements carefully and remains on guard, not letting his defenses down. Jin-Seong shows his hands to prove he doesn't want to fight and tries to calm the mood. He then remembers that smoking together can help people relax and decides to offer a cigarette. The other man looks at the cigarette and then at the guy with a doubtful expression on his face. Jin-Seong takes out the pack of cigarettes and extends it to the man as a gesture of friendship and trust. With a smile, he offers a cigarette and hopes the other will accept so they can talk. The man accepts the cigarette and looks at him with a serious but now slightly more relaxed expression. Still holding his weapon, he seems calmer, and the two can finally understand each other. The man thinks for a moment and decides to accept our confident Jin-Seong's offer. He takes the cigarette and asks for one to smoke while putting his improvised weapon on the floor. Jin-Seong puts out the cigarette on the table, and the two finally start to relax a bit. The other guy says he feels alive again, and Jin-Seong agrees with a smile. Suddenly the man's stomach growls, and he gets embarrassed by the unusual situation. He explains he only ate half a chocolate bar, and Jin-Seong decides to help him with that. Jin-Seong figures he must have gotten the food from the break room on this floor. The man opens his backpack and shows some instant noodles, breaking them in half. He offers half to Jin-Seong and advises him to chew it well so he doesn't get sick. The two eat together, and Jin-Seong asks if he cleared out the entire second floor. The guy confirms it and says he no longer needs to worry about storing food in the fridge. With his mouth full of noodles, Jin-Seong continues the conversation with his new companion. Now calmer, they sit down to talk and better understand each other's situation. Jin-Seong asks how the situation is on the second floor, and the man says it's not good. He says he was trapped in the break room with a colleague, and they shared the food. But his colleague insisted on leaving while he thought it was better to wait for rescue to arrive. In the end, the colleague left and got infected as soon as he opened the break room door. Jin-Seong comments that there seemed to be a lot of zombies, and the man confirms he saw 4 of them. He only left because his battery was dying and he needed to find a way out soon. The man explains that he distracted the zombies and crawled out to escape. Jin-Seong praises the man for escaping from 4 zombies, and he appreciates the compliment. He then asks if the other guy was the one who turned on the generator, and the guy confirms it. Seeing a power strip, he understands the power was turned on to charge something. The man with glasses asks if the phone is still useful, and Jin-Seong looks at him confused. The other is surprised and asks if he survived all this time without using the internet. Jin-Seong says there's no signal, but the man reveals that satellite internet is working. Shocked by the news, he remembers the company SpaceLink and confirms he knows it well. The man explains that there are still servers running in some online communities. He offers to charge Jin-Seong's phone and invites him to sit down. The phone starts charging, and Jin-Seong is finally able to connect with the world. He sees posts from other survivors and realizes the internet is indeed working. Grateful, he turns to the man and thanks him for all the help he has offered. The two remain silent for a while and observe their surroundings with great attention and calm. Suddenly, the light starts to flicker, and they look up, worried about the situation. The man with glasses warns that the emergency generator is about to run out of power. He then asks what Jin-Seong plans to do next and looks at him seriously. The guy says he's going to stay there, and Jin-Seong realizes he wants him to leave. He understands he's a burden to the other, who just wants to protect himself and save food. Jin-Seong agrees that they aren't ideal partners at the moment. With a determined look, the two face each other and decide it's best for each to go their own way. Jin-Seong decides to leave because he knows he would be an obstacle for the other survivor. The man with glasses understands the decision and agrees to the two survivors separating. Before leaving, the man takes something from his backpack and turns to Jin-Seong. He offers a flashlight and a portable charger as a farewell gift to the guy. Surprised and grateful, Jin-Seong accepts the items, knowing they will be very useful. In return, he offers a lighter, and the man thanks him for the unexpected gift. The two say their goodbyes, and Jin-Seong prepares to go on his way alone. With a smile, he turns and waves goodbye to the other survivor with a friendly gesture. The man wishes him good luck, and the two part ways, hoping to meet again. Jin-Seong says goodbye and hopes they see each other again alive and well in the future. He hurries to leave before the power goes out and everything in the building goes dark again. Looking at the lobby door, he sees the zombies are still trying to get into the place. With his golf club in hand, he prepares to explore the rest of the building alone. He goes down the stairs and decides to head to the basement to get the company car and escape. The parking lot is full of cars, and he realizes he can use one of them to get away. However, he wonders if leaving now is the best choice or a hasty decision. For now, he decides to go back up and gather more information before trying to flee the building. He climbs the stairs, determined to explore and find a safe way out of the place. Suddenly, the lights go out, and the hallway is plunged into total darkness again. Cautiously, he takes out the flashlight he received and prepares to continue his journey in the dark. With the flashlight in hand, he illuminates the dark hallway and gets ready to go up the stairs. He moves slowly and carefully, knowing the zombies might have moved to a different spot. Going up the stairs, he passes the 4th and 5th floors with great attention and caution. As the flashlight lights his way, he hears a strange noise from above and stops. He realizes there's someone on the floor above, and the probability of it being a zombie is high. With the golf club in hand, he prepares to face whatever is up there. Determined to survive, he decides to move forward and break any obstacle in his path. He leaves his bag and flashlight on the floor so he can fight with more freedom and agility. Suddenly, a zombie appears at the top of the stairs and starts coming down toward him slowly. Relieved, he notices the monster has its back to him, and he might be able to slip by unnoticed. Silently, he climbs the steps, taking the chance to pass by the creature without being seen. However, the zombie turns and attacks him by surprise with a quick and unexpected blow. The creature attacks him fiercely, but he manages to defend himself from the blow with his golf club. Startled by the sudden attack, he prepares to fight back and fight for his life. The zombie leaps at him, but Jin-Seong hits it with the club, sending it flying. With a direct hit, he strikes the monster's head with all his strength and determination. The impact sends the creature flying into the wall with a loud and frightening sound. The zombie screams in pain, but Jin-Seong doesn't stop and prepares for the final blow. With a battle cry, he attacks the monster with another powerful and definitive strike. The zombie falls to the floor, and Jin-Seong finally manages to neutralize the threat and breathe. With the zombie's body on the floor, he can finally breathe a sigh of relief and rest. With his heart racing, he wonders if the fight is finally over and if he's safe. Unfortunately for him, the zombie starts to move again, and he realizes it's not over yet. He strikes the creature one more time with all his strength to finally finish it. After the blow, the status window appears and he earns one more coin for winning the fight. The blue screen shatters and he realizes the head of the golf club has also broken. He picks up the broken piece and decides to keep it as it might be useful in another situation. With the flashlight in hand, he investigates the body and wonders where that zombie came from. He checks the rooftop door and sees it's closed, so the monster must have come from somewhere else. Worried, he realizes the 7th floor may no longer be a safe place to stay. He returns to the office and checks if the area is still secure and free of any threats. Relieved, he takes a deep breath and prepares to rest a bit after the intense fight. He drinks some water to calm down and thinks about the speed of the zombie he just faced. The creature was much faster than a normal human and seemed like a wild animal attacking. He realizes that if there had been 2 zombies, he would have perished, and he needs to find allies soon. He grabs his phone and decides to check the internet for more information about the zombies. In the survivors gallery, he sees hundreds of posts from people all over the country. He reads accounts of the temperature dropping and the difficulty of finding safe drinking water. Unfortunately, there isn't much new information about the zombies and their weaknesses right now. He summarizes what he knows, remembering they are sensitive to sound and have poor sight and smell. He knows he can only stop them by destroying their heads and that a bite is fatal. Frustrated, he realizes the internet is just full of people asking for rescue and no real help. This leads him to a terrible conclusion, and he realizes the government has collapsed. Devastated, he understands that no one is coming to save him, and that he's on his own now. Suddenly, he sneezes and feels his body shivering with cold and weakness in the office. On the 5th day of survival, he realizes he's about to catch a cold. He knows that getting sick now means the end, and he needs to find a solution quickly. To warm up, he starts doing exercises and generating heat with his own body. His stomach rumbles with hunger, and he decides to eat a chocolate bar to replenish his energy. He eats the entire bar because he knows he needs calories to survive the cold. After eating, he prepares to go out in search of more food and essential supplies. He decides to leave his shoes behind to make less noise and not attract zombies. He remembers there's still food in the development team's break room. The problem is that the zombie colleague has the backpack, and there are more monsters around. He hides and observes the dark office infested with hungry zombies. He notices the zombie colleague is still wandering around the office with the backpack on. Jin-Seong knows the only way is to eliminate the zombies one by one and get the backpack. He watches the monsters moving and plans a strategy to attack without being noticed. The first zombie is near the door, and he prepares to attack the monster by surprise. He approaches carefully and gets ready for the first confrontation in the dark office. He counts the zombies and realizes there's one more somewhere in the office. Confused, he wonders where the last zombie is and if it hasn't transformed. He needs tools to fight, but knows there's an unknown zombie nearby. With the flashlight, he peeks through the door's window and sees the break room is empty. He enters carefully, prepared for any surprise attack from a monster. The room is dark, and he uses the flashlight to search for supplies and tools. With a smile, he sees the supplies are still there, and he can take what he needs. Suddenly, he hears approaching footsteps and quickly hides so he won't be seen. With a determined look, he prepares to put his plan into action and lure the zombies. He uses a cup to make noise and get the attention of the creatures on the other side. The cup falls to the floor, and the sound attracts a zombie that approaches to investigate the source. The creature gets closer, and Jin-Seong prepares to attack the monster by surprise. The zombie enters the room, and Jin-Seong attacks it with a quick and precise blow. He strikes the monster's head hard and neutralizes it before it can react. With a smile, he celebrates his victory and prepares for the next step of his plan. Suddenly, he hears more zombies approaching and sees them trying to break down the door. The creatures pound on the door violently, and Jin-Seong needs to act fast to escape. He looks in the mirror and sees the reflection of the zombies trying to get into the break room. He locks the door and celebrates that his plan worked exactly as he imagined. With the zombies trapped, he can finally grab the backpack with the food and supplies. With the flashlight in his mouth, he celebrates his victory and prepares for the next zombie. Suddenly, a zombie grabs him by the leg and pulls him to the ground with great force. The creature holds him tightly, and Jin-Seong realizes he's in trouble again. The monster opens its mouth to bite him, but he manages to defend himself just in time. He shoves the flashlight into the zombie's mouth to stop it from biting his arm. With the flashlight holding the monster's mouth open, he buys some time to think of a plan. The creature tries to bite the flashlight but can't, and our hero prepares to fight back. He tosses the flashlight into the air and lands a powerful punch on the zombie's face. The blow sends the creature flying, and he gets ready for the next attack. With the golf club in hand, he finishes off the zombie with a strong and precise strike. His eyes gleam with determination as he prepares to face the other monsters. He doesn't stop and continues to fight fiercely to survive in the dark office. After the fight, he rests and tries to recover from the intense and tiring confrontation. Exhausted, he runs a hand through his hair and realizes there are still more zombies to face. He looks in the mirror and sees the bloody handprints of the zombies on the other side. With 2 more zombies to face, he prepares for the next round of the fight. He picks up his flashlight and gets ready to finish off the monsters once and for all. With the flashlight in his mouth, he needs to end the fight before more zombies show up. He lures the last 2 zombies into the room and prepares for the final showdown. The 2 monsters enter the room, and he gets ready to fight both of them at the same time. He throws the broken piece of the golf club, and one of the zombies gets distracted by the object. The other monster attacks him, but he manages to dodge and prepare for a counterattack. He uses the flashlight to blind the zombie and buy time to attack the other monster. With the zombie blinded, he prepares to attack the colleague with the backpack of supplies. The creature recovers and attacks him, but he manages to dodge and grab the object on the floor. With the piece of the club in his hand, he attacks the zombie with a swift and precise blow. He finishes off the creature and prepares to face the last zombie in the office. The last monster attacks him, but he manages to defend himself and strikes it with the broken club. The status window appears, and he earns 4 coins for his victory in the intense fight. He grabs the backpack from the zombie colleague and notices it's quite heavy with supplies. Now without a weapon, he decides to look for more supplies and tools in the office. He starts searching through desks and drawers for anything useful for his survival. In one of the drawers, he finds a portable charger and nutritional supplements. With a smile, he celebrates his luck and puts the new items in his backpack. Excited by the discovery, he decides to search the Development Team 2's area as well. He enters the room and starts looking for more useful supplies and tools. The guy manages to find a few things that will help him move forward. Happy with the result, he manages to find a charger and several supplements. With a full backpack and a flashlight in hand, he prepares for his next journey. He walks through the office, and now his goal is to explore another part of the building. Suddenly, he remembers the last zombie and worries about the possibility of an attack. Without a weapon, he knows he's in danger and decides to leave the office as quickly as possible. He runs through the dark hallway and steps on something on the floor, leaving a bloody mark. With the backpack in his arms, he finally manages to calm down and breathe a sigh of relief in the area. He laughs at the thought that he feels safe in the office, despite the chaotic situation outside. Tired, he hugs the backpack and allows himself to rest a bit after so much stress. He decides to check what he managed to get in the backpack and prepares to organize his items. Inside the backpack, he finds chips, chocolate pies, cookies, and instant noodles. With a huge smile, he celebrates his luck and is thankful for finding so much food. With these supplies, he knows he can survive for a month if he has drinking water. As the adrenaline wears off, he starts to feel cold and shiver in the dark, chilly office. His wet feet make the situation worse, and he decides to wash up a bit to get warm. He washes his feet with the icy water and complains about the intense cold he feels in his body. Suddenly, he notices a wound on his foot and worries about the possibility of infection. Shocked, he wonders if he was scratched by a zombie during the intense fight earlier. He remembers he wasn't bitten and tries to calm down to avoid panicking in the situation. With his phone in hand, he researches the infection and whether scratches can transform him. He finds a post from another survivor who was scratched and didn't transform. Relieved, he reads that only bites can turn people into hungry zombies. With this information, he can finally relax and prepare for the next day. Happy that he's not infected, he celebrates the news and feels much more relieved. He puts his phone away and gets up to continue his journey in the dark, cold office. However, the problem now is the cold, and he needs to find a way to warm up. He tears up the blanket and realizes his feet are freezing and he needs to warm them up quickly. With the status window in front of him, he opens the shop to see if there's anything useful for him. He looks for winter clothes and finds several options to protect himself from the cold. The shop offers clothes, boots, gloves, and winter hats, all costing 3 coins each. Frustrated, he complains that the items are sold separately and for the same high price, with no choice. He decides to buy the boots to protect his feet from the intense cold of the place. The boots appear in front of him, and he's surprised by the magic of the status window. He picks up the boots and tries them on, curious to see if they will fit his feet. The boots fit perfectly, and he realizes the items are customized for him. However, he knows the boots alone won't fix the cold, and he needs something more. He looks for more options in the shop but can't find anything that can help him in this situation. With a determined look, he continues to search for something that might solve his problem. Suddenly, he finds a mysterious item in the shop and decides to buy it to see what it is. He presses the purchase button and spends one of his coins to acquire the new item. A pair of sweatpants appears in front of him, and he's confused by the unexpected purchase. However, he uses a heat patch from the pants and feels a little more alive and warm. With his feet warm and a bit more comfort, he prepares for the next challenge. He complains about the price but knows the heat patch is essential for his survival. With the patch on his feet, he feels immediate relief and manages to warm up a bit. With a smile, he feels alive again and ready to face whatever comes next. Sitting by the window, he watches the snow fall and prepares for another day of struggle. On the 7th day, he goes to the sink and realizes the water has been cut off in the building. He prepares for the worst and fills his bottles with the water that was still left in the tap. With about 2 liters of water, he knows he only has enough for a few more days. Lying on the floor, he despairs, realizing the water ran out just when he was feeling better. He picks up his phone and sees that other people are also reporting the water outage. In a post, a survivor says he's going out to look for a nearby supermarket. Other people ask if he went, and the man confirms he's on his way and will post if he makes it. He sees the post and notices that the number of new publications is decreasing every day. With a sad look, he concludes that most of the survivors probably haven't made it. Looking out the window, he can barely see any signs of life and feels more and more alone. He tries to stay optimistic and believes there are still other survivors out there. On the 8th day, he checks the post from the man who went out and sees there's no reply. With his hope dwindling, he realizes he can no longer just sit around waiting for a miracle. He looks out at the snow-covered city and knows he needs to act if he wants to survive. With a determined look, he gets up and prepares to go out in search of a way forward. With limited food and water, he knows he can't wait any longer and needs to risk it all. He knows that going out alone is a death sentence and needs to find an ally to survive. The problem is he needs a weapon to move around and look for other survivors. He only has a golf club, which isn't very durable and breaks easily against the zombies. The shop offers a hammer for taking down zombies, but it costs a pricey 5 coins. With 5 coins, he could buy winter clothes and a heat patch to keep warm. He decides to explore the other floors for supplies and weapons before spending his coins. On the 4th floor, he enters an office and braces himself for what he might find inside. He's confused to see the empty office and wonders what happened to the people there. With his flashlight, he illuminates the area and realizes there's no one there, and everything is silent. He notices blood stains on the desks and keyboards and starts to get suspicious. Besides the stains, he smells a strange odor in the air and realizes it's the smell of zombies. He doesn't understand where the bodies are or what happened in the abandoned office. He tries to open a door, but it's locked from the inside and he can't get in. Surprised, he wonders if someone is hiding in there but doesn't hear any noise. Suspicious, he prepares to break down the door and find out what's on the other side. With his golf club, he strikes the door's knob hard and manages to break the lock. He announces that he's coming in and prepares to face whatever is inside. With a strong kick, he opens the door and enters the dark room with his club in hand. The door opens, and he finally gets into the room to investigate the mystery. He sees several cabinets and drawers and gets ready to search for supplies and clues. Shocked, he turns around and sees a pile of zombie bodies in the corner of the dark room. He counts at least 10 bodies and wonders who was able to eliminate so many monsters. With a curious look, he wonders if there was someone that's strong in his company. He realizes the place has been searched and that there's nothing useful left for him. Frustrated, he realizes that someone has already cleared the floor and taken all the supplies. He wonders who was so thorough as to take everything from the abandoned office. He finds a mug and notices there's a note left by the other survivor. The note explains that the survivor cleared the floor and piled the bodies in the room. He reads that the other survivor left his shirt and warns him to avoid the 5th floor. The note reveals that the man is heading to the west coast to stay safe from the zombies. He regrets having missed the chance to find an ally by just 1 day. The survivor identifies himself as a colleague from the accounting team and a former Special Forces member. On the back of the note, he finds a PS that mentions a gift left in the drawer. Excited, he opens the drawer and finds 2 coffee packets as a farewell gift. With an ironic smile, he realizes the gift isn't that useful, but appreciates the gesture. On the 10th day, he eats a chocolate bar and reads the note from the other survivor. He remembers the warning to avoid the 5th floor and becomes curious about what's there. He goes up the stairs and decides he needs to find out what's happening on that floor. He approaches the door and prepares for the worst he might find on the other side. The tension rises, and he gets ready for another confrontation in the zombie-infested building. He wonders why the 5th floor is dangerous, since it's the president's office. He throws the paper away and decides to trust the other survivor's warning for now. He hasn't seen any signs of life since the day before, and feels increasingly alone. As time goes on, the chances of finding an ally decrease, and he needs to act fast. He doesn't want to miss another chance, and decides to look for survivors on the other floors. Looking at the blinds, he wonders, here's how many floors he'll have to check to find someone. Suddenly, a light flashes in the building across the street, and he realizes it might be a signal. He runs to the window and sees someone in the other building sending him a light signal. With a hopeful smile, he realizes he has finally found another survivor. He sees the person in the other building but can't understand what they're trying to say. Confused, he tries to communicate with the other survivor, but the distance is a problem. He uses his phone to try and read the message the person is trying to send him. With the camera zoom, he's able to read the note and understands the message from the other side. The note says there are people on the 6th and 7th floors and invites him to join them. Excited, he celebrates finding more survivors and gets ready to head over there. With his golf club in hand, he prepares for another journey through the infested building. He goes to the president's office and wonders what he might find inside. He enters the room and is met with an unexpected and very surprising scene. Instead of zombies, he finds a private gym belonging to the company's president. Shocked, he realizes the president had his own private gym in the office. He sees that the entrance isn't blocked and wonders if a survivor cleared the path. He approaches carefully and identifies himself as an employee from the building's 7th floor. Suddenly, he trips on something and falls to the ground, knocking several objects off a table. He notices the door was broken down and that something strange is going on in there. He senses a presence behind him and turns to see a frightening shadow approaching. A zombie attacks him from behind, but he manages to defend himself with the golf club just in time. The creature knocks him to the ground, and he struggles to get rid of the monster with all his might. He manages to push the zombie away, but the monster comes back at him ferociously. He kicks the zombie hard, sending it to the other side of the room to buy some time. With the monster down, he prepares to finish the creature off with his golf club. With the zombie on the floor, he prepares for one more strike to end the threat. He attacks the zombie with all his strength and finally manages to neutralize the scary creature. Exhausted, he cries with relief and recovers from the intense and dangerous confrontation. He gets up and looks for supplies in the room but doesn't find anything useful. A status window appears and he gains one less coin, leaving him confused by the situation. He wonders if the survivor from the other building was lying about the allies. Suddenly, he hears a noise coming from a locker and approaches to investigate. Relieved, he realizes the man didn't lie, and that there really is a survivor here. He prepares to open the locker and find the other survivor in the building. Hopeful, he gets ready to meet his new ally and fight for survival. He knocks on the door and says he doesn't want to hurt anyone and just wants to talk. He asks the person to identify themselves and says he came to join the others. Jin-Seong introduces himself and says he's also an employee of the company from the sales team. With no response, he prepares to break down the door and enter the room by force. A voice asks if he's Assistant Manager Seong, and he's surprised by the question. The door opens, and he sees his co-worker, Seona, standing there in front of him. Shocked, he realizes she's been here the whole time, hidden and safe from the zombies. The two sit down to talk, and he understands that she was there from the beginning. She tells him that last night, someone knocked on the door urgently asking for help. With a bad feeling, she refused to open it, but the man broke the door down. She hid in the break room, and the man turned into a zombie shortly after. Scared, she heard him groaning and dragging himself down the dark office hallway. Jin-Seong realizes that the zombie he eliminated was the man who attacked her. She asks if he has a weapon, and he points to the wooden spear in the corner. He notices the weapon is similar to the one the other survivor used and gets curious. The young woman explains that she sharpened a mop handle with a utility knife and that it's quite useful. He sees blood on the tip of the spear and realizes she's faced zombies before. However, he knows she could be a risk and a liability in a world like this. He prepares to leave, but she calls out to him and grabs his golf club to help. She says he's going to need a weapon and joins him in the fight for survival. She holds his arm and begs him not to leave her alone in the building. He apologizes but knows he can't risk his life for her at that moment. With tears in her eyes, she says she won't be able to survive on her own and asks for his help. He pulls away and says he's very sorry, but he needs to go his own way to survive. She reveals that she used to practice fencing and could be a useful ally in the fight. Surprised, he looks at her, and she shows him a scar on her arm to prove her skill. She says she cleared the entire 6th floor and can show him the bodies to prove her strength. With a determined look, she warns that he'll regret it if he leaves her behind. Impressed by her confidence, he begins to reconsider his initial decision. She boasts about having won a silver medal at a national sports festival. With a handshake, they finally seal their alliance and decide to fight together. She says she has searched the place and that all the clothes and food are here with them. He asks about the chargers, and she explains that the satellite internet is working. Surprised, she realizes they need to grab every charger they can find. He asks how many zombies she's faced, and she tells him it was 8 in total. She finds the chargers and puts them in her backpack so they can use them later. He's happy to have joined her and knows his chances of survival have increased. She only finds 2 chargers and puts them in her backpack for their journey. With everything ready, she asks if they can go, but he asks her to wait a moment. He looks down the dark hallway and prepares for the next step of their plan. He notices the marks on the door and asks what happened for it to be like that. She explains that the man who broke down the door tried to crush it with a desk. He realizes the marks aren't from a desk and goes to investigate the area carefully. On the desk, he finds a caliper and is surprised by the unexpected discovery. With a smile, he picks up the tool and gets excited about finding a new weapon to fight with. He knows the metal tool is very sturdy and won't break easily. The young woman regrets that the weapon is short, but he doesn't mind that detail. With a smile, she says she has an idea to improve the new weapon they found.